So it's with pleasure I invite our next speaker, Professor Reiner Wittkowski, to talk to us. And Professor Wittkowski is Vice President of the German Federal Institute for Risk Assessment, or BFR, as you'll see BFR on a lot of the slides. Professor Reiner is the Vice President of the German Federal Institute for Risk Assessment in Berlin, which is an institute of the Federal Ministry of Food and Agriculture in Germany. Professor Reiner is also a member of the Board of Trustees of the Stiftung Warentest and an advisory board member of the Committee for Food and Agricultural Product Standards of the German Institute for Standardization, and the second representative for Germany at the Advisory Forum for the European Food Safety Authority, or EFSA. He will be speaking to us on the legal and institutional background of food safety in Europe and the role of BFR in Germany. And with that, I have pleasure in inviting you to the dais.
Yes, good afternoon. So first of all, thank you for having the opportunity to talk to you. And you will hear something about the role of BFR in the field of food safety in Europe. And in some parts, it doubles what my colleague from France was saying, because we have the same background and we were founded to the same time for the same reason. So what was the situation? Normally, food safety was not dealt on an EU level in the first time. So every member country had his own system. So the problem was that there was diverse national food safety provisions blocked free movements of goods. So the trade was hindered by different legislations and different levels allowed. So the EU was increasingly forced to deal with food safety issues and on an ad hoc basis. So there was a basic regulation in 2002. You may remember the date 2002 from Roger. And it was a time when there was a regulation laying down general principles and requirement for the food law. And it was established the European Food Safety Authority, the EFSA. And the reason was that all these institutions, it's the EFSA, the BFR, and ANSES, we are a child of the BSE crisis. You may remember the mad cow disease, and the situation after that was that it was extremely badly managed, it was extremely expensive, and the worst thing was that people lost their confidence in politics, but also in science. And so the EU was looking for a system where you could regain trust from consumers in politics and science. So the community method said that we have the European Commission for the legislation, we have the European Parliament and Council of Ministers to co-legislate, the European Commission and the member states implement legislation, and the European Court of Justice guarantees respect for the rule of law. That was the basis before the situation I just mentioned. So you had the ad hoc approach for food safety until the end of the 90s, and after the BSE crisis, you had a fundamental reform. So it was the BSE crisis being responsible for that. This was a public mistrust, and the reorganization in 2002 was the consequence. So there were three overarching principles. It was already mentioned. We have a risk analysis, we have a principle of precaution, and we have transparency. That was the basis, the basic conclusions in Europe which had been taken. So two basic requirements were formulated: the responsibility of food business operators, that means food shall not be placed on the market if it is unsafe. But that was a clear message that they said the food business operators are responsible for the safety of their products. It's not the government, it's not the rule makers, it's the food business operators. That was clear. And traceability, the ability to trace and follow food, feed, and ingredients through all stages of production, processing, and distribution. Also very important, also from the scientific point of view. So the principle of risk analysis was clear. First of all, you have a risk assessment, and the risk assessment is an independent scientific assessment. It is purely science coming up with the question, what do we know, what do we don't know, and what is the situation, what kind of advice can we give to the decision makers. They give it to the risk management. This is the political decision based on scientific assessment and other legitimate factors, which may be economics, societal problems or points, whatever, and the risk communication to give independent information to the public. Because if you want people make a free choice in what they eat, what they buy, they need to have information, what's in the bottle, what's in the package. So what's on the label should also be in the bottle or in the package. So, first of all, as I mentioned, the General Food Law created the European Food Safety Authority at EU level. That is an agency situated in Parma in Italy, and it works together with the agencies in the member countries. So they have a panel system, and the panels were doing the opinions of EFSA, so the panels are composed by experts from the member countries working for EFSA. And I mention that because it is important to mention that, because there is no own scientific expertise in EFSA, so EFSA is dependent from external expertise coming from the member countries. So transparency was guaranteed to organize that independent communication about risks to allow public to make informed decisions, including publication of scientific opinions. So everything EFSA is doing is coming up in an opinion, and that is made transparent. But it's not only the result, of an opinion, it is also the way the opinion was composed. So everybody who is interested can read how the opinion had been composed, what were the conditions of doing it, what has been taken into account, and what has not been taken into account. So since 2008, there is this network in Europe with so-called EFSA focal points. That mean everything that is coming from EFSA to the member countries is going through the focal points. So the focal points have the duty to distribute information from EFSA in their countries and organize a science or let's say knowledge transfer from other scientific institutions in their countries and bring that into EFSA's positions. So there are contact points from EFSA into the member countries and from the member countries into EFSA. It is mainly an exchange of information, and it is really a success story until now. The other thing that has been determined in the General Food Law is the precautionary principle. What does it mean? Where there are threats of serious or irreversible damage, lack of full scientific certainty shall not be used as a reason for postponing cost-effective measures to prevent environmental degradation. That means the precaution is a political tool if the politicians feel that the uncertainty in the science is too big. Or if they cannot be certain to make the right decision, then they can say, okay, we prohibit something, or we don't legalize things, although we don't know enough. And this is for the benefit of consumers in general. Well, we have, as it was said, we have, after the food legislation, we have agencies in all member countries of Europe. So every country was undertaking, a lot of efforts to come up with an independent risk assessment. So we have a network of public authorities in those countries, but the problem is that we have big countries like Germany and France, and we have smaller countries. And so the same principle couldn't hold in every country. So everybody was trying to implement food law, to say, okay, we separate the risk assessment from the risk management, but they have different systems in doing it. And sometimes they just build up network with their own universities where the expertise is coming from the university, but they have an official governmental institution organizing this kind of process. So if you're interested, there's the EU Food Safety Almanac that was prepared together with EFSA by the BFR, and it shows for every member countries how food safety is organized. You get it in different languages. It's in German, it's in French, it's in English, it's in Portuguese, in Russian, and also in Chinese. So if you are interested, just go to the webpage. You can order it, as many books you would like to have, and it is free of charge. So this is the story behind it. This is the worldwide and European system after 2002. In Europe, you have the political body is the European Commission. You have the independent scientific body, which is the EFSA, and you have the management option, the Food Veterinary Office. They are looking how European legislation is implemented in the field of food safety. And this is how it is composed in Germany. You have the Federal Ministry for Nutrition and Agriculture, the political body. You have the scientific body, BFR, as independent scientific risk assessment body, and you have the German Federal Office of Consumer Protection and Food Safety. They are doing the risk management and working closely together with the ministry. A certain role the BVL has in Germany, because we have 16 federal countries and they are responsible for executing legislation. So they are doing food control, they are doing the measurements for monitoring, and this has to be organized on a federal level, and that is one of the biggest challenges for our sister organization for the management. And we have federal research institutes financed by the ministry and independent from universities. So this is again what it is. This is the management body. This is what I said. We have 16 federal states, and the controls are in small regions in Germany, so they execute legislation, and this is organized by the BVL. And this is the BFR. The responsibility for BFR is food safety in general. It is along the whole food chain, so it includes feed, it includes the transfer or the carryover from contaminants from feed to animals to food. Food safety, it includes the biological safety. So healthy food is one of the biggest things. We have another department for safety of substances and preparations. That means pesticides, that means biocides, that means chemicals. And we have a department, and we are responsible for the safety of consumer products. Consumer products, as it means textiles, cosmetics, household chemicals, toys, even inks for tattooing. And because this is for us the most important thing if it comes to chemical safety, because chemical safety is mainly important also for industrial processes, for instance. But for us, this part is extremely important because here consumers are exposed to chemicals, and they are exposed through cosmetics, through chemicals, through other things. So this is very important. We have an own department for risk communication because by law we are responsible to communicate risks, and there was no master plan of doing it. So we thought it's better to have an own department, and so we defined risk communication not only for giving information, but also as a continuous process to discuss with stakeholders, with the public, in case of risk assessments, but even in cases where we don't know anything. Gene technology, CRISPR-Cas, for instance, nanotechnology. So we have a constant process of bringing that to the community and making this process also very transparent. And we have another one. This is the experimental toxicology, and this is especially to protect laboratory animals. So you saw that already. So the separation was risk assessment and communication from the management. And these are the key elements which Roger has already mentioned. That means independence. We are independent by law, but you have to show people that you are independent. So we are not taking any money from the private sector. We don't give advice to single people, to single companies, not even to single politicians. We talk to associations, we talk to political parties, we talk to groups from the parliament being responsible for certain things. This is what we do, and we make that transparent. And there's not one risk assessment done by one person. It's always done by different people, and it is an assessment and a publication by the institute itself and not by single persons. So the other thing is science. Our scientists are active scientists, and active scientists are doing the assessments. That simply means that the best expertise and the best advice to politicians is coming from the best experts. But for that, they have to work as experts, so they have to do research. And the backbone of our research teams are the national reference laboratories, as Roger was also already pointing out. The other thing is transparency. It is not to make public what you are doing and what you have found out. It's also worth to tell people how you do it and how the processes are, what the knowledge is, what the uncertainty is, and this is made transparent. Even if we have, you say, big fora or consumer conferences, and we have debates, scientific debates, and also societal debates about special topics, we make that transparency so that everybody can find his own position. So what is new? And this is also something I would like to tell you, because we are a national institute, as it was already seen. Food safety is international. There is no international trade with unsafe food. So there is no international trade without food safety. And it doesn't stop at borders, as we heard. So it is extremely important to harmonize standards, to harmonize risk assessments, and to come up with same ideas. That's the reason why we are here to talk about NGS, because it is not a national thing to create a database. If you want to use it for food safety, for safe trade of goods, you have to do it on a global basis. We have started with a summer academy because there was a high demand from other countries to organize workshops on food safety, on exposure assessment, on risk assessment and risk communication. So we had the idea to say, okay, we organize a food safety academy in Berlin for 2 weeks in summer, and we do training workshops from professionals to professionals. And this is very successful. So we have decided to make it more international. We are working with EFSA together, also with our sister institutions in France and DTU, for instance. And so we export these kinds of summer academies to other parts of the world. So we had organized a meeting for South America in Uruguay. We will do the same in next year. We have done that in Africa for the Portuguese-speaking countries. We are doing that in South America for the Spanish-speaking countries. And we are planning to organize a workshop like this also in Asia, in countries. We are thinking about Tokyo in the moment, but maybe it also could be Singapore. Let's see. This is what I just told. So we were in Montevideo. We were in Cape Verde. That was the Portuguese-speaking countries. We did that in parts of southeast of Europe, and I thank you for the attention. So maybe before I close, if you go to the webpage of BFR, you find all this information. You can apply for the Summer Academy. You can apply for the documents. And since last year, we are preparing a scientific paper, a scientific journal for the public 2 times a year. The topic is BFR to go. So if you are interested in that, it's in German and in English, so you can just apply for it, and you come on a mailing list and you get it free as soon as it appears. So thank you.
Thank you very much. We've got time for a couple of quick questions. Okay, we'll save them then for the, after the next speaker, we'll be having a question and answer for half an hour so that we've got lots of time. And a lot of the questions, I think, may be overlapping between the three speakers. So I will be calling the three speakers to come up and join us for the question and answer subsequently.